All right, family. We live again with the general. You already know what time it is, man. We got some fire today. We're gonna be on MJ, man, talking about Michael Jackson and how he had tapped in to the occult at a very early age. And when you talk about the occult, we most definitely tapping into the comedic science. Had to talk about that, because we had to look at, those that achieve, in the artistry and this, that, and the third, the artistry who had achieved the greatest you know, accomplishments, the greatest accomplishment, and what was that science that they was tapping into. You understand what I'm saying? That gave them the inside scoop to be the greatest of all time, many of them. And you go into and look into their biographies and you see what it was. And again, like I said, when I was looking, and I did, as a matter of fact, I got a documentary that I tapped in on, Mike. Now I was fair, it is some weird shit going on now, but when you start to, now that's the thing, when you come into the occult, what doorway do you come through? And that's the problem a lot of time, when a lot of these Negroes, when they come into the occult, they come through the Neanderthal occult, which more times than not is based on Luciferianism. And a lot of people got their own belief. I know what it is. You see, so when you go into the Neanderthal occultism, they're gonna have the Luciferianism, they're gonna have the Lilith, they're gonna have all of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't deal with that. I come straight through the Nile Valley, and that's all that's the only energy that I'm working with. You feel Kushite, comedic, you feel me? And so when they get into that, see, Aleister Crowley was a wicked motherfucker. They call him, his mama called him the most wickedest man that ever lived. Now, when your mama say you're wicked, you motherfucker, you diabolical. You know what I'm saying? You diabolical. When your mama say you're wicked, you's diabolical. You see? And so, yeah, I watched documentary, and that's where a lot of people, he liked the greatest amongst them Europeans, as they try to say. He one of the greats, that, most all piggybacked off of. He the one that made it the most popular. And so when you look at all them during the 60s and shit, when they was out there Woodstock and early 70s, and they out there taking all the hallucinogenics and shit and all of that. And that's where niggas is getting a lot of that shit from today. All of that damn mollies and ecstasies and shit. They was back there doing LSD and all that crazy shit. But that's where you get to, and people think that they got to take all these drugs and shit to tap. That's the synthetic shit right there. You know what I'm saying? That's the synthetic shit that they try to use. Some people, even with melanin, they think they need to have them something, and you didn't come with that, nigga. You didn't come with that. You wasn't born with no mushrooms or no LSD or none of that. So that's syntheticism, that people latch to, and you ain't gonna, it's not more powerful and never will be more powerful than melanin. Okay. And that's what a lot of people is attempting to use synthetically to mimic, the cosmic and astral projection and time traveling. And I'm saying that in a sense of respect. Some fools, they think they, you know what I'm saying, and this got to be explained, but that's another class for another time. You see, some fools, and they get so lost up, and you can't get the motherfucker to come back to earth. You know what I'm saying? They take off and they keep taking off, and and motherfucker, you just see them just float away. You'll never see them again. But yeah, I was looking at some of Mike's album covers, and that one, the most definitely, he had a few you know what I'm saying, that had a lot of occult symbolisms, and all of it is relating back to Egypt, because Egypt is the foundation of the occult. Don't let nobody tell you nothing different. You know, when people start getting off into it, Egypt is the foundation of occultism. Okay, they always gonna tell you about Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus or something. You know, these fables and shit where they try to add the Greek. You know, they try to add some Greek to it. You know, ain't no Thoth. That's Greek. Hermes. This ain't got nothing to do with that. And you see, so anytime you hear something about some Hermes Trismegistus, you know you got some fabricated shit. If it ain't pure, like on the walls over there in the Nile Valley, then it's fabricated. You could, you know what I'm saying? They didn't add it standing to it, you know, and when they began to add to it is when they were denied, you know, initiation into the Kemetic mystery system. They were denied when the Greeks came into Egypt. Alexander, he asked to be, because he was trying to take the throne of Egypt, and he didn't have no lineage. But see, you understand that he didn't have no lineage. But the same thing with Ptolemy. He tried to make himself a god. You know, that god that they call Serapis. You know, Serapis Zeus. That's what he is, Serapis Zeus. So he tried to deify himself and make himself Serapis Zeus in Egypt, and they denied him. You know, they like, take this garbage up out of here, man. You ain't of the bloodline, you know. And so he you know, because he was upset at the Africans, he stole all the scrolls, and you understand, from all the temples, and compiled them down in Alexandria. You know, and of course, we all know the story where it was burned, but all they did was fabricate, because the priest that was in Alexandria, you understand, those was weak. You know, they didn't have no real knowledge. You know, so they was down in there just fabricating. They didn't have the knowledge of the ancient, you know, the ancient understanding. You know, and so they put anything together. So a lot of people be reading these Neanderthals and they really think they got something, you know, but you born with the mysticism. That's all you have to understand. You was born into, and all the mechanism that you need to tap into the cosmos, you were already born with it. They got to fabricate shit, and still only 1% of your ability. You know, they'll never be even close. You're an infinite being. You the primordial, you the cosmos in the flesh. Everything that's out there is inside of you. They absent, nigga, damn near 75% of the elements. Do you understand? That's why they get, you know, when things get rough, they got to go and hide while you out here, you know, you out here sunbathing, and they had to run and put all type of, and when you're synthetic on the inside, you got to apply synthetic shit on the outside, you know. And so that's what that is. And so Mike, most definitely, I was looking at the one with the mask, and now, you know, that led me to some things like, yeah, he was into the occult, but see, you know, he knew the ancient Egypt, but see, them people that run the music industry, you know, they go through the Roman and they go through the Greek, you know, they go up through that Roman line. They go up through that Greek line, but the elite, see, they love Rome because Rome was the imperialistic age. The Greeks, they was, yeah, you know, you had Alexander, but the Romans really, you know, they was the ones that they admire the most when it come to that imperialism. So that's why Saturn, you know, which was the chief deity, in all of this shit, that even the Pontiff Maximus, you know, with the Pope, the Pontifex Maximus was the chief priest of ancient Rome, and he wore that thin hood over his head. which when you see Jesus all the time, you see all them deities, they wear that hood because the hood is symbolic of the veil. It's symbolic of something that is hidden. You see, so you even Odin, the chief god of the Nordics, Saturn. And so when you see and you go look up Pontifex Maximus and you see Julius Caesar, you see because mostly the Caesars became the Pontifex Maximus. You know, when Rome fell, then the Pope became the Pontifex Maximus. And so the first chief deity of Rome was Saturn. He was their first king. They say that he fled because in Greece he was Kronos. You see, he was Kronos and he had to flee because he was dethroned by Zeus. And so he fled to Rome, and it was the other one, Janus. Janus was he was king at that time. Janus was king, the god that he wasn't a god at that time though. When Saturn made Janus a god, and he became the god of January. But Janus stepped back where they actually ruled together, but Saturn was he was the chief king of the Romans, the first Rome. You know, in fact, it was called Saturnia before it was called Rome. It was called Saturnia. And that you know, his temple was the first temple that you see, and they call it Capitoline Hill in Rome. His temple was the first temple up there. Now Jupiter's temple is up there. But that's where you get Capitol Hill in DC, from Capitoline Hill in Rome. Check that out. You feel what I'm saying? And so now what's crucial, and this is deep because you got to go tap into the Saturn. I'm dropping this shit because I know it. The rule of Saturn was called the Golden Age. Nah, you gonna get into the symbolisms there. You gonna see that Sat is also set. You see, you gonna see that, and you gonna see that Golden Age. You know, that golden, you're going to understand that Set or Tasseti was also Nubia, which was symbolic of gold. And so you're going to see a lot of them deities were actually the Ethiopian deities that was in there before all these Europeans was in there. You see, and they adopted them, and they, you understand, there was some transfer of, you know, stories, you know, and some of it was left behind because they didn't want you to know that it was Africans and Ethiopians in Europe before they got there. You see, but that's another story for another day. But I want y'all to tap into the Saturn. You see, I want y'all to tap in because that's the chief occult organization. And it's not hard for people because you can see the Greek shit is in the fraternity. So this is nothing hard. You know what I'm saying? And you can see the symbolisms of Saturn. Man, this shit is wild. This is wild, man. And I want y'all to tap in. As a matter of fact, let me put it back up here. Did I even? Oh, I ain't even put it in. I want y'all to put it up. And this is just one on the Saturn series. I got about seven. I think I got about 7 lectures on the code of Saturn. Man, that shit crazy. I've been doing years and years of research. This ain't nothing just popped up. You had to be studying for years and years and years to get to this level. You know what I'm saying? You ain't just gonna know it, you know, in a day. But I tell you what, I didn't help you out a lot by doing and giving you this. Oh, here you go, giving this to you in these lectures. So, goddamn it, you can save yourself, you know, many years of lecture, you know, of studying, and where you could start off on a more advanced level. So you see right there, the cult of Saturn, control of black music. I got about 6 or 7 these lectures on Saturn on Patreon. Tap in, family. Each one of them is necessary. This one is on the music. I got one on man, even the damn uh the Judaism, you know, they wear that cube. Now that black cube is another symbol of Saturn. That cube in Kabbalah, Kaaba, they use that. You see them Jews with that damn cube on their damn head, and then you go to Mecca and you see that cube, that black cube, and you see how they pray around that damn cube. And when you look at the damn planet of Saturn, listen to me, man. When you look at this planet Saturn, it's it's a hexagram that's up there on the planet. You can see it. You understand what I'm saying? And when you hexagram is a cube. When you draw the lines down, it become a cube, and you see that the rotation of all that them gases up there is going in I think it's circular, but it might be going backwards. And you see this hexagram, which is a cube, and then you look at Mecca, and they in there going in the same direction around that damn cube as that damn planet up there, man. It shit is deep, man. Listen to me. Tap in. Mike, you know, I'm gonna get the pictures so I can show y'all, man, how this man had tapped in. And he trying to come up out of that, but they ain't gonna let you come up out of that. You can't go that deep in, nigga, and think you coming out. You ain't going in that deep and think you coming out. The only way you gonna leave out is in a casket. That's how you gonna leave out. But anyway, family, I'll see y'all black in here in a minute. Get over there and check it out. And I had the whole series in a playlist if y'all want to tap in to all the Saturn. And matter of fact, I'll come up in here maybe a little later on and I'll give you a couple of morsels. You see, I come up in here and give you a few intellectual morsels because nobody does it better. I'm trying to tell you. All right, family, I'll see you black in here in a minute. Black power. Yeah, circling counterclockwise. That's right. Oh, yeah, you already, Azim, he already know about Hellraiser. Okay, then. Appreciate y'all. Black power.